Little did we know that in about 2 to 3 years, God would call Steve Swan to be the Executive Director of Youth for Christ. Avery Toma would go back to Bible school, finish his education, become an associate pastor in Lloydminster. And 9 months after Steve Swan took over as Executive Director, he came up to me and he said, I want to hire you for missionary hours and missionary pay to work with at-risk kids. And here we are 10 years later. We went from a ministry of one guy to a ministry that's in 3 different communities with 6 staff. So Steve, I'd like you to invite you up here for a bit. And if you're willing, share some words with us.
Yeah, you know, when I think about 10 years with YFC, I think about that mission. You know, I think about the mission to holistically care for young people in the city, and I think about the unique kind of position that our youth workers at YFC get to be in kids' lives. There are so few people in kids' lives who have the freedom and the ability to approach relationships with them without the burden of expectation. That's so rare in a kid's life. And expectations can be awesome. They can be really, really good things. But there's just not a lot of people in their lives who don't have expectations of them and who can just care for them. And that's really what drove me as in this organization to hire as many people I could to be those people in kids' lives and build those relationships with young people. And I couldn't be more thrilled to hand the ministry over to a guy like Jason. Jason was a man. When I think about the kind of person that I was the right person to start with nothing and to kind of figure out, hey, what could this look like? But for YFC to grow beyond its current capacity, it needed a different set of skills. And I couldn't be more happy that Jason has taken the reins as the executive director. So,
thank you. No, you don't get to sit down. You're going to stay there. Okay. So we'll get you to move over a little. Okay. What we'll do though is, within the past year, it's been my honor to meet and to become good friends with someone who I am excited to see what God is going to do in his life. And it's very evident the call of God on his life. Jason, would you please come up here? Our new executive director. Would you be willing to just share a little bit of your thoughts?
First thought is I didn't get the memo.
Oh.
I wore it last weekend, looking like Josiah. Super honored, super blessed to be here. Let me share a little bit about how God brought me to YFC.
Yes, please.
So I was working in youth gang prevention, the city and the RCMP. During that time, I found myself struggling with being able to have honest conversations about Christ. I was then starting to have friction with some of the leadership, and I had a big blowout meeting with one of my top managers, and I got home, and I just got on my knees, and I just said, God, I'm yours. What do you want me to do here? I see a fork in my road, and it's your decision, I'm yours. Put it in my heart. Please light my lamp. I need more light than usual. I need discernment here. That was my bedtime prayer. I woke up in the morning, could not be any more clear on my heart. I'm so blessed in how clearly God speaks to me. You need to close the door, I have a new one for you. Okay, here we go. Walked into work, handed in my paper. My boss went, oh, well, okay, what's your plan? It's God's plan. I'm not sure he hasn't revealed the next steps to me. 10 days later, I'm at Josiah's son's baptism in Willow River, and he hadn't known I quit, so we hadn't had this conversation. He walks up to me, and this is my best Josiah. Question for you, Jason. Yes, Josiah, what is it? He goes, have you ever thought about working for Youth for Christ? And I said, I think it's a fantastic ministry, yes. And he goes, because their director is resigning. And Lisa and I were brainstorming, and we thought that you'd be a fantastic fit.
It's good, Josiah.
It's not bad, eh? So I laughed, and I said, that's funny, because I just quit my job. And he goes, really? We need to go for coffee. So I'm going to back up a few months. During the summer or late spring, God had put it in my heart for youth ministry. I'd had multiple conversations with the Garden City pastor, Micah, we're both part of the church plant, about what youth ministry will look like for me. My degree is in criminology and psychology. I've worked in the secular world. I said, Micah, we're at his lake house for a team retreat, and I said, God's put it in my heart, what does youth ministry look like? And his answer was, this is fantastic. Summer's crazy. Let's get together in the fall and we can start meeting regularly to start laying out a path for you. Sounds good. Never even got there. So Josiah and I go for coffee, and I reveal to him that God's put it in my heart for ministry. We talk about Steve, all the work that Steve's done in the community and the growth of YFC. We talk about how it is ministry, so I would have to become a credentialed clergyman. You live on the support of others and partnerships in the community. So I've gone from a government-funded job to a ministry job. And he says, are you interested? And I said, yes. It's in my heart. Yes, I am. And so he says, I'm going to connect you with the chair of the board. And you guys can meet up, and you should connect with her. So he texted to me, and I burst out laughing again, because Krista was a client of mine for about 10 years at the gym I owned, and so we've known each other forever. And I phoned her, and I'm like, hey, Krista, it's Jason. I heard you need an ED. She's like, the job's not even posted. How do you know? I'm like, well, I just had coffee with Josiah. She's like, how do you know Josiah? We're on the Garden City church plant. So we go for a drink. And so I closed the door my very last day at the RCMP. I handed in my card and my security clearance, closed the door, got in my truck, went to meet Krista. Literally closed the doors to go open a new one. We get there, we sit down. Krista's known me for years as a businessman, a professional, personal trainer, volunteer in the community. She didn't know I'm a Christian, so I'm a fairly new Christian. We talk about my journey to faith and everything that God has done in my life. And we're about halfway through the conversation, and Krista just looks at me and starts to cry. And she goes, you're him. You are who we've been praying for months. So now I'm crying, she's crying, and I think we held hands for a little bit and we prayed right there. And she said, are you interested? And I said, same thing, yes, God's put it in my heart. I'm his, I am. So went for coffee with Steve, got halfway through the conversation. I just want to say, Jason, I'm so happy to pass the torch to you. I can go in peace. He's crying, I'm crying. I think we held hands and prayed. Steve's trying to hear. So we go to the regional interview with our regional director, Jake Schellenberg. If you've ever met him, amazing guy. We're about halfway through the interview, and he just stops and says, I just need to stop you right there. You're fantastic, and you're exactly who we've been praying for months. God has just brought you here. And so now I'm crying. He's not quite crying. I think Krista was off screen, because it was a Zoom meeting. And so we marched through, and then I had a meeting with the national director, Tim Coles, amazing person, been with YFC for like 30 years. We get to the end of the interview, and he's just smiling, and he just says, I can't wait to work with you. You're everything this chapter needs. And when I hear those things from people that have been entrenched in YFC for so long, it's so clear to me that God has been preparing me for this role for many years. He's made me a builder. All of my previous work has been in building policy, in building framework, in building programming. And I'm so excited to start to build new framework into this amazing chapter that Steve has brought so much growth to in the last several years, and start to use those skills that God has given me to build framework, scaffolding, and bridges between our ministries to help our staff be on mission and most effective in this community, bringing as many youth to Christ as we possibly can.
Yeah, thank you.
How's that?
If you're not picking up on it yet, the thing that we're really trying to highlight is growth. And with YFC, it is a life of faith. And we have something here. I have a very good friend of mine who's a professional artist. And to show how many people have lived by faith with Youth for Christ, Adam, could you bring up the slides?
Just one more slide there. And go
So-
ahead and open it.
For Steve, well, for Jason and Steve, this is Steve handing off to Jason.
Oh my gosh.
And it's this idea of, you know, when I started, I remember hearing, yeah, we were thinking of actually shuttering the doors for Youth for Christ because we were kind of concerned. And in 10 years, we've gone from one executive director to now 2. And Adam, could you bring up the other one if at all possible?
Yeah.
These are all the people who are staff. And this is not including all the volunteers. Lorella, you're up there too. These are all the people who are staff, not including the volunteers, the board members, everyone. And the wonderful thing about Youth for Christ is I could sum it up with the words of George Mueller, a German missionary who refused to ask anyone for money. He said, I'm going to show the world that God still answers prayer. And he took care of not only himself, but his family. He started a church. He started a school, 4 orphanages on prime real estate that was valued at £4 million in the late 1800s. This man put over 400 kids through school by prayer alone. Youth for Christ is a mission of faith. When I started with Youth for Christ, I should not have been able to make it past 1 month, my family and I, because we were a single income family, and the most we made for most years was $19,000 a year. And I did it for 10 years. You are being offered the opportunity, like these gentlemen here and everyone else, to live a life of faith and to join in the great adventure of Christ in these communities. I want to celebrate these
Yes,
guys.
exactly. Josiah, can you do a little name?
I can.
So
So
from
first
the
of all,
bottom
we
up?
have Steve, and then we have Jason,
Yeah.
then we have Gira, and then we have AJ, and there's a rather disreputable looking fellow.
That's
And then we-
Josiah.
Yeah,
Josiah
we have Carissa, and then we have Steph
in the orange there.
in the orange behind Carissa. And then we had 2 other staff who were not comfortable with their images being used, so they're represented there. But we have Priscilla. And I got to say this about Priscilla. Priscilla will never do this, but that is a woman of prayer and of faith. For 2 years, she didn't have enough money to start working with Youth for Christ, and yet she hung on praying because she said, God wants me here.
Yeah.
2 years this woman prayed. 2 years hanging on as staff. That is a woman of faith. Then we have Camille in the green from Mackenzie. And then behind her we have Nikita and Sam.
Ah,
And then we have Shannon. Where is Shannon?
yeah.
There you are. We would not be anywhere without Shannon. And then we have a fellow with a rather booming voice and a hearty laugh, Nathan Lyons. And then we have the indomitable Lorella.
Yes.
So,
Awesome.
thank you
So
guys.
just bear with us. We're going to do a photo. Can we have Carissa come up? And yeah, perfect.
Turn it off.
That's okay. And we're also going to do just a quick recess here too. So we'll take a photo, we'll do a quick recess, and then I'm going to get the thumbs up for dinner, okay?